Hello students, welcome you all on my channel. In this video, I am going to discuss about the ventricles of the brain, which is very vital portion of the nervous system. Here we will discuss about the ventricles of mammals. So, here you are watching the diagram, unlabeled diagram that I will label it. So see, the ventricles of the brain. Mammalian brain consists of 4 ventricles. This is known as lateral ventricles. 2 ventricles are here. This one is lateral ventricles. The ventricles named right and left ventricle, and they are collectively known as paracele. These 2 lateral ventricles are connected to the third ventricle lying in the diencephalon region through an opening called foramen of Monro or foramen Monro. Now, the third ventricle is connected to the fourth ventricle, which is present in the medulla region of the brain through cerebral aqueduct. This is the cerebral aqueduct, or you may call it aqueduct of Sylvius. So first, the mammalian central nervous system is hollow. If you are talking about the brain consists of 4 ventricles, and if you are talking about the spinal cord possesses central canal, and that central canal is hollow. That's why whenever you are giving the definition of vertebrate, you have to include the chordate possess hollow central hollow nervous system, or the dorsal tubular nerve cord is hollow, tube type. So here the ventricles are categorized according to their position where they are located. So first, a right ventricle and a left ventricle are collectively known as paracele. Paracele. See, the why ventricles are present? Because ventricle contains a fluid, and the fluid, you are well aware of the fluid name, it's a cerebrospinal fluid. This fluid create internal pressure, constant pressure, nourish the central nervous system, both brain and spinal cord, act as shock absorbers, prevent the delicate brain and spinal cord from mechanical injury. So, the right ventricle and the left ventricle are collectively known as paracele. They are lying in the cerebral hemisphere. Now, they possess one opening here. An opening is here. This opening is known as foramen Monro. This foramen Monro is connected with the third ventricle, so that the both ventricles fluid can pass into the third ventricle. So both the lateral ventricles are connected with third ventricle through foramen Monroe. Focus here. The third ventricle have a channel. This channel is running down into the diencephalon region, and this third ventricle is lined by a very delicate membrane, and this membrane is known as lamina terminalis. The third ventricle is known as diastole. It possesses delicate membrane lamina terminalis. Lamina terminalis. The third ventricle has a canal, very narrow canal, which connects the third ventricle to the fourth ventricle, which is present in the medulla oblongata region. And this fourth ventricle is known as metacele. It is known as metacele. This narrow canal is known as aqueduct of Sylvius. It is known as aqueduct of Sylvius. The third ventricle is connected with the fourth ventricle with a canal, a narrow canal that I told you. This is known as aqueduct of Sylvius or cerebral aqueduct. The fourth ventricle present in the medulla oblongata, which continues through the spinal cord, and this forms central canal in the spinal cord. The metacele, the fourth ventricle, has three openings on its roof. Two lateral openings are there. Lateral means side. Two lateral openings, maybe left and right. Two lateral ventricles openings are known as foramen of Laska, and one median opening that is known as foramen of Magendie. This must be. This is the median here. So that why it has three openings. This allows the movement of cerebrospinal fluid in the spaces, in the upper spaces of subarachnoid space in the brain and spinal cord. So here, third ventricle is connected with fourth ventricle known as metacele, through a very narrow canal known as aqueduct of Sylvius or cerebral aqueduct. Focus here. Cerebral, this one, or it is also known as iter, I-T-E-R, iter. Now the fourth ventricle, as I had told you, the fourth ventricle is known as metacele. So the fourth ventricle, metacele, extends down in the spinal cord and forms central canal. And the central canal is also filled with cerebrospinal fluid. The metacele consists of three opening on its roof. The metacele consists of three openings on its roof. Two lateral openings known as foramen of Lusca. Luscha, and a median opening present in the center of the fourth ventricle. This median opening is known as foramen of Mezendy. So the median opening present in the metacele is known as foramen of Mezendy. The median opening opening is known as foramen of Mezendy. Foramen of Mezendy. Now, what is the role? What is the role of this opening? See, this opening allow the movement of cerebrospinal fluid in the suborganoid space of brain and spinal cord. So, now I'm going to label the unlabeled diagram. See, this two lobes are known as olfactory lobe. Lobes, or simply Rhinan seal. This is two ventricles, lateral ventricles, collectively known as paracele or paracele. This is cerebral hemisphere, This is known as this center, then opening connects the third ventricle to the two lateral ventricles. This is known as foramen. Foramen of Monroe. And now the third ventricle, this is the third ventricle. It is the first one. First one comprised of two lateral ventricles, parathele. This is the third ventricle, because why it is known as first and second, because it is combined. So first and second ventricles, and now this is the third ventricle. Third ventricle is known as diastole. Diastole. It is third ventricle. Third ventricle. Now this third ventricle possesses a narrow canal. This narrow canal is known as aqueduct of Sylvius, or you may also call it cerebral aqueduct. This is known as aqueduct of Sylvius, or aqueduct, cerebral aqueduct, or cerebral aqueduct. Cerebral aqueduct. Now this one is the fourth ventricle, and this is known as metacele. Metacele, the fourth one. It is lying in the medulla region. It possesses lateral openings are here. Lateral openings. These lateral openings allow the movement of cerebrospinal fluid, upward movement into the subarachnoid space. As I told you, subarachnoid space in the brain and spinal cord. So this lateral openings are known as foramen of Lusca, and a small median opening, and this median opening is known as foramen of Magenti. So students, it's all about the ventricles of the brain. See you in the next video. Remain in touch with my channel, and there is a lot to come. Thank you very much.